India and China reached an agreement to end the 4-year-long standoff at the line of actual control, and 2 days after the Modi-Xi bilateral on the sidelines of the BRICS summit in Kazan in Russia, this disengagement process has now begun at the two friction points, which is of Demchok and Depsang. Times Now has accessed exclusive details on how this disengagement is taking place in a phased manner between both India and China. Let's break down the details for our viewers and show you exactly what's happening at the LAC. As per sources, what we are learning, on Tuesday, local commanders of both India and China met to discuss the road ahead. On Wednesday, the next day, both sides removed one tent each in Demchok. On the same day, as per sources, Indian troops moved towards the west of Chardingnala and Chinese troops moved towards the east of Chardingnala. On Thursday, that is yesterday, two temporary tarpaulin structures that were also removed from both sides in Depsang, and two vehicles were also moved out of Depsang. There are about 10 to 12 temporary structures and around 12 tents on both sides, all of which, according to sources, are all set to be removed. And this is how, on a daily basis, updates that are now being shared on the execution of the agreement in a phased manner. Let's go across to Pradeep Datta, who's joining us right now. Pradeep, good afternoon. Phased manner as far as what has been agreed upon with two sides, multiple levels of military and diplomatic meetings that have now taken place, which is now resulting in this agreement, which China has also seconded. And now in a phased manner, we are looking at the execution of the same plan.
Yes, absolutely. The two countries finally paved way for the disengagement, and your pictures started on Tuesday. Prime Minister Narendra Modi boarded a flight.
Well, just getting that line connected with Pradeep again, but as far as this disengagement process is concerned, it has already been put in action. As far as this meeting that latest happened on the sidelines of the BRICS summit, the bilateral between Prime Minister Modi and the Chinese president, and the resulting, and far as the patrolling agreement is concerned, because patrolling has been one of the latest skirmishes that has also been reported between the military of both sides in Depsang Bulge and Depsang areas of East Ladakh. That is probably a result of painstaking negotiations that has been taking place both at the military level and also at diplomatic level. It seems that this is the very determination and commitment, Pradeep, of the Indian Army in most trying conditions, that there is a complete coordination that can also be seen between Indian diplomacy and the Indian Army.
Absolutely right. Both the Indian diplomacy as well as the Indian military channels seem to be on one page, because there had been several rounds of talk, and finally they achieved what really appeared impossible just a few months back, and they had been able to manage disengagement on their terms and conditions, because India from day one, they wanted a status quo in this region that was being disturbed by the Chinese forces in 2020 May, when the Galwan incident took place. That there was a fatal confrontation that led to the death of 20. And retaliation, India was able to hit them hard. 30 of the Chinese soldiers also died. Since then, there was a standoff. And finally, just now 3 days back, when Prime Minister was boarding a flight for Kazan for the BRICS summit, that was the day when the commanders at the local level, they met, and one of the tents was dismantled the very same day. And next day, again on Wednesday, another tent was dismantled. 3 tents were dismantled on Thursday, and one more tent has been dismantled. That means 50% of the 12 tents have been so far dismantled in the Demchok area. Besides this, you rightly said, the troops have decided to move, like the Indian troops will be moving toward the west of Nilungnala, and the Chinese troops have already started moving toward the east of Nilungnala. And besides this, 50% of the infrastructure which include the tarpaulin and some of the vehicles, have moved from the Depsang area. So disengagement process is going on aerially. It will be monitored. It will also be monitored by the local commanders on the ground. And besides this, because this will lead to the normalization, because India had made it clear the situation can't be normal between the two countries till the situation on the border is normalized.
Yes, so because we've been speaking to many of those experts there as well, Pradeep, because they have been saying that it would be too early to call it as anything revolutionary or a breakthrough. It is the same status quo that was between India and China before the Galwan clashes that has now resumed after 4 years. However, this can be seen as a step that has now moved ahead when it comes to significant improvement in the relations between India and China. Pradeep continues to be with us because we get you more inside details of how this disengagement blueprint is currently looking like. Through sources, what we are learning so far, 20% of the tents and infrastructure have been removed from both sides in Demchok and Depsang on the LAC. 20% of the work that was done by Thursday night. And once all of these tense and temporary structures are fully removed, a joint verification process will begin both on ground and also through aerial surveys. Right now, there is local military commanders of India and China that are talking on hotline every morning, and they're also discussing what action is to be taken that very day. Meetings also through sources that we are learning are being held once or twice on a day, and this meeting point that has been taking place, there has been no discussion. However, when it comes to the 4 buffer zones, that includes Galwan. Now, once patrolling starts on Demchok and Demsang and trust is established, then there will be talks at the Corps Commander level to start patrolling on the buffer zone. So that is also one of the other areas, Rishabh, that we talk about as far as the building of trust, and that confidence is becoming all the more necessary, because one step China takes, India also takes that step forward, and that is how the relationship will be built between the two nations' armies.
Well, Amita, definitely. The CBM, confidence building measure, is the key right now between India and China. If we talk about how things are moving very slow. And definitely, as the experts were saying, it is not a breakthrough as of now, but definitely it is a positive beginning, so to say. You know, the way things are moving forward, and as we have been talking, that 20% of infra has been removed and further discussions are on. It showcases that both the country positively wants to disengage and de-escalate situation in Eastern Ladakh sector. Having said that, be it India, be it China, both the countries would move with caution. Indian Army do understand that it has been backstabbed in past, and there could be instances where it could repeat, and that's the reason utmost caution is being observed by Indian Army while moving forward. So definitely there is a trust deficit between India and China that needs to be considered. And having said that, a confidence building measure, as we have been talking, needs to be implemented. A mechanism to have confidence building measure needs to be put in place. And once the trust deficit is decreased, things will start moving forward. Also, not to forget that we are in the end of October. By next month, the winters in the region of Eastern Ladakh would be brutal, and as we have been seeing, soldiers die more of weather condition than the combat situation, and that's the reason both the countries would like to disengage and de-escalate things before that. Remains to be seen how things unfold from here.
So basically, that we are looking at majority of the time that the restoration work, especially when it comes to the dialogue, Rishabh, that we can say is on the move. When it comes to patrolling, the grazing to traditional areas, we even heard Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh saying that crediting the agreement to continuous dialogue, and once the disengagement is complete, patrolling will also resume.
Well, definitely. See, the first thing was to start the dialogue. Right, dialogue at the topmost level, and that's what we saw in Kazan, where the Prime Minister Narendra Modi met his counterpart, or for that matter, the President of China, Xi Jinping, and both the leaders decided that with mutual interest and mutual trust, we'll move forward. Once the meeting at the top leadership happens, things start getting streamlined. Now, the army commanders on ground or the diplomats in each other's capital, they do understand that the interest is there from the top leadership, and things need to move faster, and that is the thing, that is what we are looking at, that if from here how things will move forward. Having said that, how much of it and what the pace it would be, it will all depend on how things move from here.
So almost on a daily basis we are looking at some development as far as the LAC is concerned. Of course, it's not a defined border between two countries, but however, when it comes to the de-escalation, that seems to be taking place on the agreement that has now been reached upon between the two neighbors. Stay on with us, Rishabh, because we talk about, even as the Ministry of External Affairs first declared that patrolling pact breakthrough, doubters, however, continue to raise suspicion and questions. Congress party even went ahead to the extent of firing the DDLJ Bab. No, this is not related to the movie, where they have been accusing the government of denying, distracting, lying and justifying. Now, when the disengagement process has actually started at the LAC, what will they now say? Well, listen into the political reactions that are governing, and even that this time, as far as this agreement that has been taken on, China has also agreed to it and has seconded it. However, doubters continue to raise questions.
India believes in peaceful coexistence. When Prime Minister made the statement that nobody has entered, And then how come now it's being, there is a talk that the China will maintain the status before June 2020. That means after that, China has encroached our land.
That a process of disengagement or de-escalation, whatever the armed forces would use the correct words, is on. It confirms that further to the decision between the two countries, things are cooling on the border. And it also confirms that India's position under Prime Minister Modi that had been held for the last 5 years.
All right. In the meantime, let's